Getting out for that first ride on your new e-mountain bike is going to be super exciting. But if you're new to the game, there's a few mistakes you're going to make along the way. So today, we're going to be showing you how to ride further, faster, and more efficiently. Cadence, or the amount of revolutions per minute that you spin your cranks, is the most fundamental part of riding an e-mountain bike. You really need to tune into the fact that the amount of power your bike produces is governed by how much you spin the cranks. Each and every e-bike motor has a range of cadence where the motor operates most efficiently. Most of the time, that's around 70 to 100 RPM. However, more spinning on the whole means more assistance. As mentioned, this range varies between each motor brand, so reading up a little bit of tech is key to understanding this. An example here is that the Levo SL has a wide range of full powered support, which ranges between 10 to 120 RPM. Whereas something like the Vazua system on a bike such as the Lapierre E-Zesty drops off significantly at over 90 RPM. For some motors, the more power you put into the pedals, the more assistance you'll get. However, on some motors such as the Bosch 4th generation, you can actually get away with being in the wrong gear with a bit of an extra push on the pedal. So you can alter your cadence in two ways whilst riding. One, using your gears, and two, changing the mode or the amount of assistance. It's quite common for new riders to hit the trail in too hard a gear, meaning the motor is going to give them very little assistance. Now, gear selection is in relation to how much cadence you're going to be putting through those cranks. So make sure you're in the right gear to tackle the terrain that you're riding. For instance, if you tackle a hill in too hard a gear, you're not going to get the assistance that you possibly could from your motor. It's quite similar to climbing up a hill in your car in the wrong gear. Selecting the wrong power mode is quite a common mistake too. For instance, if you're tackling a steep uphill switchback climb, then you might find that turbo is actually too much. It might be pushing that front end out, sliding away, whereas in fact, if you turn that power down and went into something like trail, you're going to find you could have more grip and a lot more control. And the same goes for tackling steep technical climbs. If you attempt these in eco mode, there's no way you're going to get to the top. You need to stick it in boost mode or turbo and keep that cadence high to make sure you get all the way to the top of the climb. And even out on the road, sometimes less is more, especially if you're on that speed limiter. If you're cruising along in turbo, just knock it down into eco and save on that battery, and you'll find that you're going exactly the same speed. If you ride down the trail looking at your front wheel, you are going to run into problems. You really need to get your head up high and look down the trail 3 or 4 bike lengths in front of you all the time. This way, it's going to really help with the anticipation of what is coming on the trail. Things to think about here is going to be what power mode you're going to be in, what gear mode you need, and all those braking points, line choices, seat height, etc. Lots to think about, but if you put that all together, it's going to make your riding way more flowy. Anticipating the trail involves looking ahead, thinking about other trail users, your ground conditions, changes in slope, therefore gearing, braking, gear changes that might need to be made, and this applies up as well as going down the trail. Now, line choice is a mistake a lot of riders make when it comes to descending or even climbing. The idea is to pick the line of least resistance and will allow you to flow on the trail easily up or down. When climbing, look for lines that will avoid things such as wet mud, slippy roots, loose rocks, and pedal strikes, which are all things that can make or break your climb. When descending, try to keep things smooth and look for the cleanest line and features you can link together to make that trail flow even more. Now, one position your e-bike will not be happy in is being upside down with the wheels in the air. Now, it's quite tempting to do this, either to perform some work on the drivetrain or maybe fix a mechanical at the side of the trail. Now, the problem with working on your bike upside down is that the weight of the e-bike can quite easily scratch or damage the controls on your handlebars. You can end up scuffing up your brake levers, cracking your display, screen, and possibly damaging the seat too. Now, if you are performing work at the side of the trail, it's best to either try and hang it in a tree or wedge something over the handlebars to support that weight. And obviously, if you're working at home, a work stand is going to be the best option. Understanding how far you can travel on a single battery charge is definitely key, and there's many factors that can change with every single ride that you do. For instance, traveling 30 miles in hilly terrain is going to be way different than traveling 30 miles on a flat canal path. So what affects your battery range? Well, your weight, the battery capacity, the power modes used, the ground conditions, tyre pressure and tyre choice, weather conditions and temperatures, and of course your cadence. If you're expecting e-mountain biking to be like mountain biking, it's not in so many ways. And one last thing, riding a flat e-bike is no fun whatsoever, and a mistake you will only make once. Yes, if you saw us climbing the super steep slab, you might have noticed that we were out of the saddle and maybe stomping on those pedals. But that was just a short section of climbing, and a very extreme one at that. E-mountain bikes require quite different climbing techniques to road bikes and mountain bikes. On an e-mountain bike, sitting down whilst climbing is the most effective way of maintaining grip and drive up the hill. You may need to stand up for certain technical sections, but this is for different reasons, such as stopping the front wheel lifting up on super steep climbs, or to help the back wheel up steps and technical parts of the trail. If you do get out of the saddle, you're going to lose grip to the rear wheel. If the terrain gets really slippery, you can even tackle climbs with the saddle slammed. Now this is great to get your weight down low and manoeuvre around on the bike too, providing the rear wheel with loads of grip. Keep those cranks spinning and the motor will deliver. Your e-mountain bike is perfectly fine to ride in all weathers, but they are not 100% waterproof, and as you know, electricity and water is not a good mix. Water crossings are fine as long as motors don't go underwater, and yes, you may get away with it now and again, but repeatedly dunking electrical components like your motor and battery into the local river will not do it any favours in the long run. If you do give your bike a good drowning, be sure to use some water displacer in your post-ride ritual to drive that water out. Making sure your motor is turned off is definitely key when it comes to working on your drivetrain. If you're at home in the work stand, make sure it is turned off. But it is quite easy to forget about reaching for that power switch if you're working on your bike at the side of the trail. Say for instance, your chain gets jammed and you're pulling around by that chain ring. If that motor turns on, you're going to be in trouble. And it's quite a similar situation when it comes to lifting your bike also. Make sure you turn that power off before you pick your bike up, because if you clip a pedal, say on a gate or a post, motor's going to engage and it could possibly trap your clothing or at worst your fingers. So hopefully those tips and tricks are going to help you out on your first e-bike ride and help you get the most from it. But if we've left anything out, don't forget to get involved in the comments box down below. Give us a thumbs up if you've enjoyed today's video. Make sure you subscribe to EMBN and give us a find and a follow on social media. Cheers!